Most shocking family betrayal. I caught my wife cheating with my best friend. The update you didn't see coming. I'm a 35-year-old guy, and I never thought I'd end up spilling my guts on Reddit, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. A couple of years ago, my world got turned upside down, and now that I've clawed my way back, the people who burned me are knocking on my door again. Here's the story of how I lost everything, rebuilt from nothing, and gave my ex and my brother an ending they never saw coming. The good old days, or so I thought. 2 years ago, I thought I had a solid life. I was working as a welder at a small fabrication shop, earning a decent paycheck, living in a rented townhouse in a quiet suburb, and married to my college sweetheart, who I'll call Sarah. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 5. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it felt real. We had our little rituals: Friday night tacos, binge-watching sci-fi shows, saving up for a dream vacation to Hawaii we always talked about. I thought we were building something that would last forever. I was wrong. I also had a tight bond with my younger brother, Jake, who's 30. He's a single dad with a 7-year-old daughter, and I'd always been there for him. I'd fix his beat-up car for free, cover his electric bill when he was short, and even babysat my niece so he could pick up extra shifts at his warehouse job. Jake and I had each other's backs, or so I thought. The day it all fell apart, it was our 5th wedding anniversary, and I decided to surprise Sarah by coming home early with her favorite takeout from this Italian place she loved. I walked into our townhouse, expecting to see her chilling on the couch. Instead, I found her in our bedroom with my best friend, Tom. Yeah, that kind of scene. I stood there in the doorway, takeout bag in hand, while they scrambled to cover themselves. Sarah didn't even look guilty, just pissed that I'd shown up unannounced. Tom muttered some weak apology and bolted. That moment is burned into my brain. The takeout bag hitting the floor, marinara sauce leaking onto the carpet, and the realization that my marriage was a lie. The weeks that followed were chaos. Sarah swore it was a one-time mistake, begged me to go to counseling, said we could fix this. But then I found emails between her and Tom going back years. This wasn't a slip-up. It was a full-blown affair that had been going on almost as long as we'd been married. I felt like an idiot for not seeing the signs: her late nights at work, the sudden password on her phone, the way she'd pull away when I tried to hug her. The divorce was brutal. Sarah hired a slick lawyer who painted me as the bad guy, claiming I'd been emotionally distant. She went after everything: our savings, the car I'd paid off before we met, even the damn couch I bought with my first big paycheck. My lawyer was a budget hire who seemed more interested in his fantasy football league than my case. I ended up sleeping in my coworker Dave's spare room, living off instant noodles and trying to keep my head above water. The second betrayal, if Sarah's cheating was the knife, my brother Jake's betrayal was the twist. Jake and I had always been close. When our parents split when I was 15 and he was 10, I stepped up to help him through it. I was the one who taught him how to drive, helped him with his homework, and gave him advice when his ex left him with a newborn. So when I told him about Sarah and Tom, I expected him to have my back. Instead, he took her side, not because he thought I deserved to be cheated on, but because Sarah was showering him with perks. She'd buy him new work boots, take him and his daughter out to expensive dinners, and even offered to set him up with a well-connected friend of Tom's who could supposedly get him a better job. Jake ate it up. He started hanging out with Sarah regularly, even after I showed him the emails proving how long she'd been cheating. When I confronted him, he had the nerve to say, maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Women need attention, man. That phone call was the moment I realized I was truly alone. I hung up, blocked his number, and decided I was done being the doormat. I was going to rebuild my life, no matter what it took. Rock bottom, I moved into a studio apartment so small you could high-five someone in the kitchen while sitting on the toilet. The walls were paper thin, the water heater was a gamble, and the place smelled like the previous tenant's failed dreams. I'd sit on my thrift store mattress, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I'd gone from a stable life to this in 6 months flat. Sarah and Jake, meanwhile, were living it up. Their Instagram was a parade of selfies at steakhouses, concerts, and a weekend trip to a lake house, something Sarah and I had always planned but could never afford. The captions were the worst: cutting out toxicity, living my truth, surround yourself with real ones. Subtle, right? My parents weren't much better. They kept saying I should work it out with Sarah because marriage takes effort. When I pointed out she'd been cheating for years, my dad said, "Well, son, sometimes you've got to forgive and move on." My mom chimed in with, "Relationships are messy. You can't just throw it all away." It was like they thought I was the one overreacting by not wanting to stay with someone who'd been lying to my face. The worst was when I ran into Jake at a gas station. I was buying off-brand energy drinks and a sad burrito, my dinner staples at the time. He was loading up on craft beer and fancy chips, stuff he'd never bought before. He saw me and gave me this pitying look. "You doing okay, man? You look rough." Before I could respond, he launched into how Sarah was killing it with her new life and how Tom was such a solid guy who'd taken them to a VIP club downtown. "You should have treated her better," he said, shaking his head. "She's happier now." I didn't say a word, just paid for my burrito and walked out. That night, I sat in my tiny apartment and made a promise to myself. I was going to turn this around. I wasn't going to let Sarah and Jake's betrayal define me. I'd build a life so good they'd regret ever crossing me. The grind, my routine became relentless. I'd wake up at 4:30 a.m., hit the gym, a rusty set of weights in the apartment basement, and be at the shop by 6 a.m. I'd weld, grind, and fabricate until 7 p.m., sometimes later if we had a rush job. After work, I'd grab a $5 burger and study for online courses in business management until I couldn't keep my eyes open. Weekends were for side gigs, welding fences, fixing trailers, anything to stack cash. It wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't healthy, but it kept me focused. The shop, my boss, Carla, started noticing my work ethic. She was a no-nonsense woman who'd been running the place for 20 years. One day, she pulled me aside and said, "You're working like you've got something to prove. What's the deal?" I shrugged and said, "Just trying to buy a house." She nodded, like that was the most sensible thing she'd ever heard. "Good for you. Nothing beats owning your own dirt." That small bit of encouragement hit harder than I expected. In a world where my family acted like I was the bad guy for being hurt, having someone acknowledge my effort meant everything. Carla started giving me more responsibility, handling inventory, dealing with clients, even training new hires. By month 8, I was basically running the shop while she focused on the books. One evening, as we were closing up, she said, "I'm getting old, kid. Been thinking about retiring. You ever thought about owning this place?" I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Carla, I'm barely keeping my head above water." She smirked. "You're doing better than you think. We could work out a deal, payments over time. You take over bit by bit. I'd rather sell to you than some corporate outfit that'll gut the place." It was a pipe dream, but it lit a fire under me. I added, "Own the shop," to my list of goals, right next to buy a house. I doubled down on my online classes, teaching myself accounting and inventory management. It was brutal. My brain wasn't built for spreadsheets, and I flunked my first practice exam so hard the instructor emailed to check if I was still alive. But I kept at it, studying during lunch breaks, watching tutorials in the shop's downtime, making flashcards to drill myself on cost analysis. Slowly, I started seeing ways to improve the business, streamlining orders, negotiating better supplier deals, tracking which jobs brought in the most profit. I showed Carla a breakdown I'd made of our last 6 months of work, which clients paid on time, which jobs had the best margins, which suppliers were ripping us off. She looked at it like I'd invented fire. "Where'd you learn this?" she asked. "Online," I said. "Been burning the midnight oil." She grinned. "Keep this up. and I'm selling you this place sooner than you think. The tide turns about a year into my grind. I started hearing rumors that Sarah and Jake's perfect little world was crumbling. Tom, the guy Sarah cheated with, had dumped her for someone younger just 3 months after our divorce was finalized. Apparently, he wasn't the commitment type. The well-connected friend Sarah had hyped up to Jake? Total fraud. The guy was a wannabe influencer who'd promised Jake a job at a tech startup that didn't exist. Jake had quit his warehouse gig, thinking he was about to level up, only to find himself unemployed with a kid to support. Sarah had burned through her divorce settlement on designer bags and weekend getaways, trying to keep up with Tom's crowd. Now she was crashing at her cousin's place, broke and jobless. I got all this secondhand from Dave, who still talked to Sarah's old roommate. I didn't gloat or say, "I told you so." I just kept welding, kept studying, kept saving. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good to know the universe was handing out receipts. Carla came through on her offer. She proposed a 3-year buyout plan for the shop, with me taking over as full owner by the end. It was a stretch financially, but my savings were growing, and I just put a down payment on a small fixer-upper house in a working-class neighborhood. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, a leaky roof, and a backyard that needed a machete to tame, but it was mine. The day I signed the papers, I got a text from Jake. He'd gotten a new number and wanted to catch up. Said he missed his big brother and how family's forever. I didn't reply. I was too busy packing boxes. The family strikes back a week before I moved into my new house. Jake showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked rough, unshaven, wearing a stained hoodie, with that same desperate look he used to have when he needed a loan. "Hey, man," he said, trying to sound casual. "Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe. "What's up, Jake?" He shuffled his feet. "I messed up, okay? Sarah fed me a bunch of lies about you, and I bought it. I'm sorry. Things are bad right now. My landlord's raising the rent, and I can't afford it with just me and Lily." I saw the boxes behind me and his eyes lit up. "You moving somewhere nice?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Bought a house." His face changed, like he'd just hit the jackpot. "That's awesome, man. How big is it?" 3 bedrooms, I said, already knowing where this was going. "Perfect," he said, way too eager. "Look, I hate to ask, but me and Lily are in a bind. Maybe we could crash with you for a bit? Just until I get back on my feet. I'll chip in for bills, I swear." I stared at him, remembering the gas station, the Instagram posts, the way he laughed when I told him about Sarah's affair. "No," I said flatly. His smile dropped. "What? Come on, man. It's me. Your brother. Lily's your niece. You made your choice," I said. "You picked Sarah over me. You don't get to waltz back in now that she's not footing your bar tab." He tried the guilt card next. "You'd let your own niece end up in a shelter? What kind of uncle are you?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. "Take Lily to mom and dad's," I said. "They've got a big house." He muttered something about them not having room, which I knew was code for them not wanting to deal with his mess. "Not my problem," I said, and closed the door. The next day, my phone lit up with calls from my parents. Jake had run to them with a sob story about how I was abandoning him and Lily. My mom left a voicemail. "I didn't raise you to turn your back on family. Your brother needs you. That house of yours has plenty of room." My dad's message was blunter. "A real man takes care of his own. Step up, son." Funny how they hadn't called when I was sleeping in Dave's spare room, eating ramen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I didn't respond. I had a house to move into and a business to run. Then Sarah texted me. Yeah, my cheating ex had the audacity to chime in. "I know things ended badly, but Jake told me about the house. You're doing so well, and I'm proud of you. Please don't leave him and Lily hanging. That's not who you are." I replied with one line, "You don't know who I am anymore. Lose my number." Then I blocked her. The final showdown the day I moved into my house. I got a call from the real estate agent. The seller had tried to pull out at the last minute, claiming a better offer. My heart sank, but the agent assured me the contract was solid. It delayed closing by a week, but I was still getting my house. I didn't tell my family the new closing date. Let them show up at my old apartment and find it empty. Moving day was bittersweet. The house needed work, but it was mine. I cracked a beer on the back porch, looked at the overgrown yard, and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. Naturally, that's when Jake decided to escalate. 2 days after I moved in, I came home from the shop to find his car in my driveway, him and Lily sitting on my porch with duffel bags. "We got evicted," he announced, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "We're out of options." Lily looked exhausted, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. My heart broke for her, but Jake's stunt was pure manipulation. "You can't just show up like this," I said. He stood up, puffing out his chest. "What? You're gonna kick us out? In front of your niece?" I took a deep breath. "Take Lily to mom and dad's. Or call Sarah. You two are tight, right?" His face fell. "Sarah's not answering my calls." "Shocker," I said. "Get off my property, Jake. I'm not playing this game." He tried one last guilt trip. "Lily deserves better than this. You're her uncle." That almost got me, but I remembered his words at the gas station, the way he dismissed my pain. "You made your bed," I said. "Lie in it." He grabbed his bags, muttering about what a selfish prick I was, and left with Lily in tow. Locking the door the next morning, I filed for a no trespass order against Jake. The process was straightforward. His stunt with the bags was enough to justify it. I also installed security cameras around the house, with alerts sent to my phone. If he tried pulling that again, I'd have the cops on speed dial. Then Sarah showed up. It was late, maybe 11 p.m., and I was wiping grease off my hands after a long day at the shop. I saw her under my porch light, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm in trouble," she said, voice shaking. "I lost everything, my job, my place. I'm staying with my sister, but she's kicking me out." I didn't even let her finish. "Not my problem," I said, stepping inside. She grabbed the door frame. "I still love you," she said, tears streaming. "We had something real. Don't you miss it?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You killed whatever we had. Goodbye, Sarah." I shut the door and didn't look back. My parents made one last attempt. They showed up at my house unannounced. My mom with her classic guilt trip face. My dad looking like he was ready to lecture me into submission. "Your brother's struggling," my mom said, barging in. "You've got this big house, and you're letting him and Lily suffer." I laughed. "Big house? It's a fixer-upper, Mom. And where were you when I was crashing at Dave's? When Sarah cleaned out our savings?" My dad cut in. "A man provides for his family. You're letting us down." I stood my ground. "I'm not the guy you used to walk over. I built this life without you. You don't get to claim it now." They left, muttering about how I'd changed. Good. I had. The new chapter. A month later, the shop's profits were up 35%, and Carla was talking about retiring by summer. I'm on track to own the business outright before I'm 36. My house is starting to feel like a home. New paint, fixed roof, and a backyard I'm slowly taming. I posted a simple photo on Facebook. Me on my porch with a coffee, captioned "New Beginnings." The likes poured in from coworkers, old high school buddies, even clients. Then came the predictable messages, my mom calling me cruel, my dad saying I was flaunting my success, Jake ranting about how money changes people. I didn't respond. I'm done with their drama. I've got a business to run, a house to fix up, and a life to live, one I built from the ground up. No thanks to them. They thought they could break me, but I'm thriving. And that's the best revenge I could ask for.